Hey everybody, welcome to our Mosaic Campus Church live stream. We're so happy that you took the time to join us this evening. My name is Steve Grimes. I get the amazing privilege of being the pastor at Mosaic Campus Church. And if this is your first time joining us, you've never been a part of a Mosaic gathering before, we would love to get connected with you, hear a little bit more about your story, what you're up to now in terms of school or work. So please, if you would, take some time to email our Mosaic Gmail. It's mosaiccampuschurch@gmail.com. We would love to just know a little bit more about who you are. You can ask any questions that you may have about Mosaic Campus Church, and we'll get in contact with you right away. For those who have been a part of Mosaic for what seems like forever, feel free to reach out to us as well if you need prayer or just someone to connect with. Reach out to that Gmail, or you can message us privately on Facebook, and we would love to just connect with you in that way. We have an awesome stream coming up for you tonight. We're kicking off our spring-summer series called What a Time to Be Alive, and we have some awesome content for you. But before we get into that, just have a few announcements for you as you kick off this week. One of the things we've been doing on Wednesday nights is having these social gatherings together while still social distancing. And so this past Wednesday, we had our very first Instagram Live takeover hosted by Nathan and Marcus Baker. And they did such an awesome job hosting that. Takes a bit of courage and some guts to be on Instagram Live and then answer any questions that people may ask. And so I want to thank the guys for doing that. But we had a great time. So keep your eyes open for the next time that we'll do that. We'll post it on our social media, and we would love for you to be a part of that. But for this Wednesday night, we're having something that we did before a couple weeks ago. It's our Netflix watch party. And so we did this a few weeks ago, and it was an awesome time, taking in a great movie. There's the option there to chat with people on the side, and then you have some of your fundamental movie snacks with you as well. And so this Wednesday night at 7:30 p.m. we're having another Netflix watch party, and it's super easy to sign up for this. All you have to do is go to the link bit.ly/MCC Netflix party. What it's going to do is going to ask you for your name and your email, and then about 7:15 you'll receive an email with the link of how to join that Netflix watch party. And so take some time to carve out to take that in, have some social interaction. I know some of you are still doing exams and assignments. Get all of that done so that you can take some time to relax and just socialize with some of your friends. So we can't wait to see you there Wednesday night. As well, over the past few weeks, this is a time where giving towards causes or churches and organizations and things like Mosaic Campus Church can kind of get put on the back burner as people are applying for EI, for layoffs, or funds are just at an all-time low for a lot of people. But much to our amazement, our joy, and to our thanksgiving, our giving at Mosaic has been amazing and even more consistent than it's ever been. And that's a testament to who you guys are. And so I just want to say thank you for that. To those who are giving consistently or one-time givers, we're so appreciative of that. And so if you want to be a part of that as well, if you value what you experience at Mosaic and want to give back to what we're doing here, we want to give you the opportunity to do that. And the best way in the time that we're living in right now is through e-transfer. And so you can send that transfer to mosaiccampuschurch@gmail.com. Make a very generic password or question and answer to that question so that we'll know what to put in there, and then we'll receive your transfer right away. And so if that's something that you want to be a part of, or if you have questions about that, please feel free to reach out to us, and we would love to get in contact with you. So keep all those things on your radar this week as you go through your daily routine. Tonight, as I said, we're kicking off this amazing series that we're going to be doing over the next few weeks called What a Time to Be Alive. And what we're doing is we're looking at various aspects of life and a spiritual life of someone on a journey with Jesus and how it's being affected during this pandemic that we're living in, but also various life stages we go through, like graduating university or entering university for the first time. And so what we're doing is we're looking at these various topics and how they become affected by these various life stages that we're living in. And so tonight we have Erica Lush, who's a certified Canadian Christian counselor, and she is going to give us so much knowledge and practical advice on how we stay healthy mentally during this pandemic. And so we ask her a lot of questions surrounding mental health as a whole, and she gives us some really great practical advice of how we can stay healthy during this time. So I encourage you to get out a notebook or on your phone, open up a note and take some notes for this, because there's going to be things in this that you're not going to want to forget. So make sure you do that as the stream goes on later and we hear from Erica. But before we do that, we have Emily and Noah who have recorded a worship set from Grand Falls, Windsor for us. And so we're going to take some time to worship together. We encourage you to be interactive in this, not just sit on the couch and take it in, but stand with us, worship along with us right before Erica comes and gives us her talk on mental health. Thanks for joining us.
Hey everybody, welcome to Mosaic tonight. It's so nice to have you all here through the internet. I hope that wherever you're you're able to sing along with us and take in the lyrics to these songs. Me and Noah are joining you guys again from Grand Falls, our hometown. So yeah, sing along with us, and I hope this really speaks to whoever tonight. He's coming on the clouds, kings and kingdoms will bow down. And every chain will break as broken hearts declare His praise. Who can stop the Lord Almighty? Our God is the Lion of Judah. He's roaring with power and fighting our battles, and every knee will bow before Him. Our God is the Lamb that was slain for the sin of the world. His blood breaks the chains. Every knee will bow before the Lion and the Lamb. Every knee will bow before Him. So open up the gates, make way before the King of Kings. The God who comes to save is here to set the captives free. Who can stop the Lord Almighty? Our God is the Lion of Judah. He's roaring with power and fighting our battles. Every knee will bow before Him. Our God is the Lamb that was slain for the sins of the world. His blood breaks the chains. Every knee will bow before the Lion and the Lamb. Every knee will bow before Him. Who can stop the Lord Almighty? 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 Who can stop the Lord? Our God is the Lion of Judah. He's roaring with power and fighting our battles, and every knee will bow before Him. Our God is the Lamb that was slain would provide Steve with the words tonight to guide us and support us and help us feel some peace and comfort with the situation that's happening right now. I pray that you be with each and every person, and that you would just take this online service into your hands, God. Thank you for everything you've done for us and giving us the privilege and the opportunity to be able to do this. Amen.
Well, Erica, thanks so much for taking the time to do this with us today.
Of
We are
course.
so thankful for you, your wisdom, your knowledge, and everything that you know about this whole topic with mental health. And especially in this time, I believe this conversation is going to be really life-giving for these students. So thanks so much for doing this.
Yes, of course.
Maybe before we get into some of the questions that we have for you, maybe you can let everybody know just a little bit about who you are for those few people who don't know who you are, and just tell them what life looks like for you right now, those kinds of things.
Well, I'm currently social distancing home with my husband and my 4 kids.
Yes.
We just had a baby. He will be 8 weeks old on Monday coming, so just in a couple days. So we're home and we're just trying to keep everyone occupied and sane, and we just make messes, and it doesn't matter when it gets cleaned up. But that's what life looks like for us. So we're busy. So for those of you who have like already read 9 books and have watched entire Netflix seasons, like that's not my life. So that's where we're to. I'm currently in like an interesting, I haven't really picked up work yet. I run my own clinical practice, but in light of having a baby and now with COVID-19 happening and my office kind of being off limits, we're trying to iron out what it's all going to look like over the next couple weeks, couple months. But we're home and we're safe and we're healthy, and we still have food in the fridge. So we're doing good.
Excellent.
That's awesome.
Excellent. That's great to hear. So getting into this topic, I first kind of want to dig into maybe people who now they're in this pandemic, but they've never ever walked through a mental health challenge before, but maybe they're having moments of feeling depressed or anxious. I just want to ask, is there a difference between like just a few emotions of depression and then actually being diagnosed with depression? Is there kind of like a line between those? Do they kind of intersect together? Just for the one who's thinking, I'm having these thoughts, I don't know if I wrestle with depression or not, or just have these depressive moments. Is there a difference between those two?
Yeah, of course. Something that I think is important for all of us to understand is we all experience emotions at different levels, at different times, for different reasons. So there's almost like 2 sides of the emotional pie. One side is emotions we experience when our needs are met. The other side are emotions we experience when our needs are not met. So it's very normal for us to feel sad, to feel fear, to feel depressed, to feel anxious. Those are things that every human would have experienced when our needs are not being met. When we look at someone who would be, say, diagnosed with depression, when you think about like a clinical diagnosis of a mental health challenge, we typically talk about, well, you would be experiencing those emotions for 2 weeks or longer, and it's really debilitating your everyday functioning. So very common for someone who has depression. They struggle to get out of bed in the mornings. They have very low motivation when it comes to like work, extracurricular, socialization, relationships. They feel like they're a burden to the people around them, and it becomes this like debilitating type of thing that they carry. But all of us feel depressed at times.
Yeah.
So I don't want to be like, oh, it's one or the other, but sometimes it is a combination of both, but it would be when it gets really severe. So when someone has had that for a prolonged period of time, and it really does impact their daily functioning. Given just, to bring, obviously we're in the middle of COVID-19 and it's a worldwide pandemic that we're all experiencing. I want to just highlight for people, give yourself a little bit of grace if you are struggling, because when we experience loss, for example, or if someone who we love passes away, or when we lose our job, like those are things that are very normal for us to feel sad and depressed about. So heighten that in a pandemic that we're currently all living in, like expect to feel those things is probably what I would say, because it's very normal emotions for us to have when our needs are not being met. Does that mean that you would be diagnosed with clinical depression? Not necessarily. Because we are in a very unique situation where we feel that this season is long term. Everyone's kind of living in the panic and the fear of that. But what I would kind of suggest and encourage people in is expect some of that, because we have all lost something in this season and we're all experiencing it together. So it's okay if it feels like you've been sad for a while, and it's okay to feel like your motivation has been really low right now. Mine has too.
Yeah.
So we're kind of, we're in it together. But there's definitely a difference in both, right? Oftentimes with our emotions, they can be fleeting or they change. We can have, maybe half of our day we're feeling really heavy and we're really sad and discouraged about what's happening. But then the second half of our day, it feels a bit lighter and we can experience some more joy and we get an opportunity to have happiness brought back into the day. That's the balance we're hoping for people to be able to find right now. But yeah, just have grace with yourself. Like expect to feel sad. We're all losing stuff right now and it's really hard.
Yeah. No, that's really good. That's good. It's also, I don't know, almost like comforting to know that we're all somewhere along that spectrum. Like we all experience moments of anxiousness or symptoms of depression or seasons of that, whatever that looks like. Right. So I don't know, for me anyways, it's almost like, oh, okay. It's okay. Like it's we all deal with it. We all go through it.
Yeah. And I try to stay away from like negative, positive emotion talk, because no emotion is negative. Like we all have emotions. They all come at different levels for different reasons at different times. And they're a response that we have naturally to needs being met and needs being not met. And that's the language I like to use when I talk about it, because it's not that it's bad or wrong or negative to feel that way. It's actually very normal. It's just right now some of your needs are not being met, and that's okay.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's really good. I know you have a lot of experience like with young adults and journeying with young adults. So from your perspective, do you think that for young adults today, in today's context, that there's still a bit of a stigma around admitting to having mental health challenges, or is this just something that has kind of become another part of life, another facet of life?
From my experience, I think the stigma is still very real, even though our society and our culture like has done a really great job to try to normalize it for our society. The young adult world, like where you guys are at, who are watching at home, it's probably a little bit easier for you guys to have the conversations because you do have good relationships in your life, typically speaking, right? Like like we live in a culture where people are connected and they're a little bit more comfortable with vulnerability. But what I have seen is oftentimes the biggest struggle for people to admit that they have a mental health challenge is this feeling that they're a failure. It kind of becomes equated to like, I'm weak, or I'm failing, or I'm not good enough, or I'm not successful, and it tends to become this like picture we paint of ourselves that's a negative one because we have a mental health challenge. And that's where I find people are holding back from talking about it and holding back from saying, hey, I'm struggling, and I need some help, because they don't want to have this picture painted of them that's like, oh, I'm failing or I'm not good enough. And that's where I see the biggest obstacles coming. A lot of that, again, comes back to, you know, how we were conditioned to think about mental health. So maybe we grew up in small communities where it wasn't talked about, or maybe we grew up in a home where it was believed that it was like, not of God, and you should be able to deal with it with your faith. Or maybe we grew up in situations where, you know, there was this negativity. If like, typically you would say, oh, someone has bad nerves. And then it was like, kind of like, you know, well, they have bad nerves. So, you know, and I think that was probably even just like the table talk that we grew up with that then conditioned us to feel that way, where we then maybe transfer that onto ourselves when we struggle. So the stigma is getting better, but it's still very real. And I think we are doing a better job with things like Bell Let's Talk, with people like you guys having mental health conversations with your circle. You know, the conversations are happening more and more all the time. And I think that the stigma is slowly starting to release a little bit, where people are able to say, okay, I'm not the only one that struggles. I'm not the only one who has challenges. But I would encourage everyone to say that in order to break that, and in order to create a space that's comfortable and welcoming and open for everyone with whatever their challenge is, it first starts with you and your own vulnerability and your own place of admittance. Because as soon as you are vulnerable enough and able to say, hey, like, I've been really anxious all week, that then opens the space for the next person in the room to be like, me too. Like, I'm not the only one. So it really begins with us and being honest and vulnerable about what we're actually going through and how we're feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's not easy.
Not easy. Yeah.
And that's part of it, right? That's just part of it, being open and vulnerable enough in those moments to kind of open the door to have those conversations.
Yeah.
Which is part of what we're trying, you know, to do here today. And we always try to make Mosaic a space for people to be safe and vulnerable to have those conversations.
And that's the key point that you said then, Rebecca, is the safety. Like, if someone feels safe, then they're okay to bring their vulnerability, because they know they're not going to be attacked. So the safety part is really the key to it all. Yeah,
absolutely. A common question that we get asked a lot is this anxiety or depression, or, you know, insert mental health challenge here, whatever that looks like for somebody, is this going to be a permanent part of my life for the rest of my life? So from your perspective, do you see mental health challenges as something that young adults are able to overcome at some point along their journey? Or are they just something that people are kind of having to learn to navigate for the rest of their life?
Again, I think it's unique to the person. As we kind of opened and started with this conversation, we all have emotions on different levels for different reasons and different seasons. Of course, there's tons of people who have faced mental health challenges and have overcome them, and they're able to look back at that season of life and think, oh, that was a really rough season, but look where I'm to today. And the things that used to impact me then and there no longer impact me in the current. That happens all the time, where people find the right supports, they put in the correct coping mechanisms, they surround themselves with the good community that they need, and they're able to, you know, really overcome and move past and conquer some of those things. But then there's others of us who, for whatever reason, it's something that we carry with us for our lives. Do we know why that is or why that's not? Like, not really, because we're all unique and our own individual, and we all experience and feel things differently. But to encourage those people, don't let that be something that defeats you, because in today's society especially, there are so many resources and supports and spaces that are available for someone who is struggling with a mental health challenge, to find the tools, to find the resources, to get the help that they may be anxious for the rest of their lives, but it's something that they're able to cope with and function with, and go on to be a very successful, ambitious human being, and not allow that to hold them back. So would that necessarily go with them? Or, you know, it's going to be a different story for all of us, because we all have it. And also in that same kind of stream, like, there's different seasons of our lives that kind of bring those emotions back up. Now that I look back in my own life, I'm able to see, like, different seasons because of different reasons where my anxiety was higher than when it was in other seasons. So just because, like, we move past it in one season doesn't necessarily mean that, like, it's like our anxiety's gone then for the rest of our lives. Because we very easily may walk into an unknown season that we don't know of right now. And then all of a sudden our anxiety is triggered again, and we find ourselves back, you know, grappling with it and trying to cope with it and overcome it. So it looks like life is a marathon, and the mental health challenges that we face in life, we need to just, you know, again, have grace with it, and just find ourselves seeking the right resources accordingly. When we need it, we go and we find the resources, we learn the tools, we find the safety nets, so that we can overcome and that we can be successful with it.
Yeah, that's great. And like, we'll get into a little bit about what those resources can be later, but you mentioned it when we talked about the stigma around mental health challenges, about, like, allowing space for God to heal or to work in this situation. And do you see any kind of balance between seeking out medical or professional help, the resources that are outlined for us, but also a reliance on God and what He can do as well? Like, is there a balance that we should have there? Has there been some negativity around that? Just your thoughts on that kind of thing.
Yeah. When I think about that question, the first place I kind of go is, shouldn't we rely on God in all aspects of our lives? So it's just interesting to me how oftentimes us as a Christian culture, we kind of, like, separate mental health from other areas. Like, it's kind of like in its own little category to the side. It's like, you know, the taboo thing in the room that no one's supposed to touch. So it's just interesting, because when we talk about our reliance on God, like, from my understanding is, shouldn't we rely on God with all the parts of our lives? So if life looked like a pie chart, for example, that pie is made up of so many different pieces. We have finances, we have relationships, we have health, we have, you know, future goals. We like, there's so many different things that are a part of life, and mental health is a piece of that pie. So when I think about what we rely on God for, like, us as people of faith, we rely on Him in all of it, in the whole pie. You know, we allow God to be a part of every aspect of it, and our dependence and our reliance on Him is in all of it. But the thing that sometimes I think happens with the mental health conversation is sometimes we think to ourselves that if we're relying on God for my mental health, shouldn't it get better? Or shouldn't I not struggle? Or shouldn't I, be in a different space with my anxiety and with my depression than what I currently am? God, like, are you forgetting about me? And that's oftentimes the conversations when it comes to mental health and faith, where I see it kind of come head on. But the interesting piece for me is, when we rely and depend on God with the whole pie, so with all of our lives, it doesn't necessarily mean that life is going to be painless, or that life is going to be seamless or perfect, but it becomes this space as Christians where we rely on God even in our suffering, because life is a part of suffering is a part of our life. It's, it's going to come in different avenues. In this middle of this pandemic, people are getting hit financially, they're getting hit relationally, they're getting hit health-wise, mental health-wise. So does that equate that, God isn't interested in being a part of what our mental health journey looks like? Like, no, because it's positioning our hurts so that he's Lord of our suffering, and we depend on him in the midst of the pain. So when we look at, how do we, what does that balance look like in relying on God for, our mental health? Like, well, I think that that's just a part of our reliance on him in everyday life. What that looks like mental health wise is, oftentimes many of us grew up in cultures where if you were having a depressed season or you were having an anxious season, my grandmother, for example, God rest her soul, she would just be like, we don't talk about it, pray to God, like, we just have to have stronger faith. Yeah. And that struggle was so real because you wanted to believe that with all of your hurt, but then at the same time, like, you knew in reality the struggle was still there. Does that mean God forgot me when I was anxious? And my grandmother used to say, like, Erica, you just need to pray about it and have stronger faith. I felt like, maybe he was forgetting me in those moments, but I think that was a very poor theology that was really damaging. Right. Yeah. Because I think the way God wants to approach it with us is say, hey, let me be a part of the suffering. That doesn't guarantee that it's going to go away. That doesn't guarantee that just in a moment or, like, it's going to all of a sudden be better, but it's this place of, hey, I'm going to rely on you in the midst of it. Yeah. Because this is really hard.
Yeah.
That's so good.
That's an amazing perspective. Yeah.
Thank you. So knowing that and knowing the situation that we're living in with this pandemic, have you heard of, and I know we're all isolated, so we're not having the most contact with people, but have you heard of people who currently have mental health challenges? Have you heard of any ways that they've had to be creative in coping with their challenges in this time?
Oh yeah. I mean, right across the board. Typically people find their coping, and find their mental health strategies to help them outside of their house. Right. They tend to, like, if it's, you go to a gym or you're a part of like a spin class, or, you're a part of a painting group, or you're a part of a church community, or you just even get up and go to work. Like, oftentimes that sense of like routine for people to say, like, hey, my day is predictable. Like, I know what I'm doing from 9 to 5. Like, I have a class that I'm in tonight. Like, the predictability and the fact that we were able to control what our days looked like, we had something to get up and go for. That was a huge piece of how people coped with their mental health challenges. So in the midst of all of this, with everything just going on this like abrupt halt, like, it's wreaking havoc for a lot of us, because the predictability, the things that we can control, the things that we know were our outlets, oftentimes all of those things now are taken from us. Even just the social connection part, right? Like, which is huge.
Huge. Yeah.
Huge. And like FaceTime and Zoom and stuff is great, but we're all missing it still. Like, we all know that it's not doing what sitting and having coffee with someone, used to do for us.
Yeah.
So we're trying to make the best out of like a really crappy situation. But yeah, people have had to get creative because we're being forced in our homes, rightfully so, because we need to be home and we need to social isolate. But it's just people are lost to be like, I don't know what to do in this space. Especially, you know, when you think about the young adult community, like maybe you've had to move back in with your parents, or maybe you just lost the job that you're only a year into. Maybe you're a first-time home buyer and now all of a sudden like you can't meet your mortgage. Like there's so many things about that season of life that right now it's, again, I keep coming back to this, but like have grace with yourself because it's okay to not be okay right now. Life is in chaos for a lot of us.
Yeah.
So it's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I guess just building off of that, what are some practical tips that you would recommend for those who may be experiencing maybe some higher levels of anxiety? We talked about at the beginning, maybe some people that this is a first time thing, maybe this is something new for them in this season, especially kind of during this time where we're dealing with loss of routine and loss of control, and so many different other things. So what are some practical tips that you would give, and what are just some of the best ways to work through these periods that can be filled with anxiety?
Yeah, of course. I made a list of 10.
Oh, perfect.
But, all those 10 may not work for you, whoever's viewing, okay? Like you pick the things or the one thing or the two things that you're like, oh, that's something that I can do where I am. And that's what you do. Like sometimes it's just going to be a little small shift, a little small change. But I did write down 10 things. So if you want to write them down, please do, because then you can remember them. Because as Steve Grimes always says, your pen will remember what your brain can't.
Wow, no one's ever quoted me
He's
before.
been quoted.
Yes, he's been quoted. So these are just some really practical, simple things that all of us can do together, okay? So the first one is stick to a routine that probably looks like a new routine, okay? As we talked about, like you're not getting up in the morning to go to work and your gym is closed down and you're not able to grab coffee with your friends, but get creative in finding a way to have a routine in your day. If that's like getting up the same time in the morning, brushing your teeth, getting a shower, putting on clothes that's not pajamas, you know, like creating some kind of space. If it's like putting in time where you're reading, or putting in time where it's like, this is my devotion time, like this is my time where I call my friend, this is my time where I do a stretching video, for example, just to have a routine so that there's something right now that's predictable and you have control over. Because things feel so out of control. So that little piece that you can pull back and you can regain control of and you can have predictability over will actually do wonders for how you're feeling. Because oftentimes a lot of our like heightened anxiety comes from this like lack of control of what's going on around us. And we are 100% in that season together. So get a routine and try to stick to it as best as you can, because that's going to give you power again over your day and over your life. So that's number one. Number two, this one is like real, like super simple, but shower and get dressed every day.
Yes.
Which I hope a lot of you are doing anyway. But like real talk, okay? Because we all know that we're home, we're social distancing. There may be days on end we don't see anybody. So like you may have the same pair of pajama pants on for 4 days in a row, and that's not okay. Okay. So like you need to shower and you need to get dressed. Present yourself as if you're going to be seeing somebody, because it's going to do wonders to your mood and how you feel. Because when you feel presentable, even though you may not have anywhere to go, which we shouldn't be going anywhere, right? But when you feel presentable, all that's doing, it's making you think differently about yourself and feel differently about yourself. So shower and get dressed every day.
That's awesome.
Yes, it makes a difference. It makes a difference, even in productivity. right?
Yeah.
It makes it makes a difference. I agree.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
100%. It's interesting you talk about the productivity piece, because I've started to make my bed consistently every day.
Mm-hmm.
Just like, and you know, I would make my bed every now and then when I get a chance or whatever.
Yeah.
But just getting up, getting an opportunity to like put my bed back together, put the pillows on, it's something that I can control. And
Yes.
it's something that I can do.
Yeah. It starts your day off right.
Right. Like
Yeah.
it makes a difference to how you feel. So it's tiny. It can be really small, tiny things that actually have a huge impact. Okay. Number 3, move your body for at least 30 minutes every day. If that's getting outside for a walk, if that's finding an exercise video on YouTube, which is currently like flooded with exercise videos, from Pilates to yoga to HIIT to, I mean, like there's so many different gym companies that are posting things online. So find something that works. If that's a stretching video, like move your body for 30 minutes a day, because it's going to make a difference. It's going to get the good endorphins pumping. It's going to make you feel healthier. It's going to make you feel stronger. And it's a great thing to put into the routine piece that we talked about, where it gives you predictability, right? It gives you an opportunity to know that you can control this part of the day for 30 minutes where you're just going to be active. But that's a huge piece. In Newfoundland, I know our weather's unpredictable. But again, like finding that space even in your home, if you need to, just where you can be active for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Number 4 is to have some kind of social connection while staying physically distant. We do live in an age of technology where you can FaceTime and Skype and Zoom and Facebook Messenger, and like the sky's the limit on you can have, I mean, on Zoom, you can have a group conversation with 100 people if you want, right?
Yeah.
I've known people who are like doing Bible studies through Zoom, and people who are still having their weekly tea parties through Zoom, business meetings,
Awesome.
you know? So find an opportunity to connect socially. If you are struggling to know who to connect with, this is when I encourage you to reach out to some of those safety people, right? If that's Pastor Steve and Rebecca, if that's, you know, a local person in your community that you trust, they can be people who can connect you to another group that's socially connecting. But we still need that social connection. We still need to be able to see people, even if it's through a screen, just to have a conversation. It's very important. For the feelings of isolation, for the feelings of loneliness. It will make a world of difference, which is, you know, it's a great reason to get dressed in the day. If you know every day you're going to be seeing somebody.
So true.
They all connect together, right?
Yeah.
But super practical and simple. The 5th one would be to involve self-care into your routine. If that's coloring or cooking or knitting or playing music or pounding the drums, right? If it's doing some stretching or deep breathing, or just, you know, having space where you're silent for a little bit, if that's what you need. If you need to journal, you know, find the spaces where self-care can be implemented right now. Oftentimes, as we talked about before, many people would cope by getting out of their homes. They would be a part of these things outside. So we may need to get creative with what the self-care looks like inside, but it's super important for us to still do it. Like sometimes it's just a cup of hot coffee.
Yeah.
Like that's all we need, right? The young adults are like, holla, you know, like that. Like it's sometimes just to have that space to be like, you know what, I'm going to sit right now and I'm going to drink this hot coffee and I'm going to look out the window. And that's what it takes. But we need to ensure we're still involving self-care into our lives. Huge for us going forward. Number 6, limit your social media use. I know right now you're home and it's so easy to just like be on your phone or your device and like mindlessly be looking at whatever you're looking at. But limit your social media use. I find something that's super practical to help with that is set the social media timer on your phone.
Yes, that's what he does.
Right. So that way
Yeah.
you just like, you pick your amount of time in the day, where you say, hey, this is the amount of time that I'm comfortable with to say, like, this is how long I've been on social media in the 24-hour period, and stick to it. Because if you find yourself just in that mindless, like, scrolling, right now our social media is filled with pandemic news from all over the world. There's, still some negativity on lots of negativity on social media with like people's comments and different things like that. So just, be good to yourself that way. I'm not saying cut it out altogether, but set the timer, right?
Yeah.
Pick the amount of time that works for you and stay within that, because it will help.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny too, right? Because being informed is a good thing, but I feel like we're over-informed all of the time. And like you said, it's just, we're inundated with all of these different articles and whatever, right? And so that's great. That's a great practical tip.
Yeah. And too much of that, like, it's going to heighten your fear and your panic.
Absolutely.
Like if we are social distancing and we are putting all the precautions in place that our government and our health authorities are telling us, like, we're okay, like, we're going to be safe and we're going to be okay. But when we are bombarded with like articles from New York City, for example, which is a really scary place right now, that can heighten our fear and our anxiety and our panic. And we may be home in the middle of Birchie Bay thinking like, I'm not going to see anybody, but all of a sudden we're having these really intense emotions because we're reading about somewhere else in the world. So yeah, we just want to be cautious about how much of that information we're allowing in, and we want to be aware of how much it is impacting us and affecting us. For sure. Number 7, and this one I like, and this is something that that I encourage people to do even outside of these seasons, but to write a list of things you're grateful for every day. Because what that does, when you take your focus off of all the things you've lost right now, and you take your focus off of like potentially the really unfortunate circumstance that you currently are finding yourselves in, but you focus on the things you can be grateful for, like, it shifts us. It takes us from looking over here and being discouraged, and it just brings us over here to a place of gratitude and thankfulness. That one's huge, and that's something that I encourage people to do all the time, like before this, after this, but write a list of the things you're grateful for, because we still have a lot to be grateful for. I mean, we're safe. We have food, we have clean water, we have family, there's still so much that we can be thankful for in the midst of this season, even though we're all experiencing loss right now. That one's huge for your mood shift. Number 8 would be to help others or to give back. Something really amazing happens inside of us when we're able to do something for someone else. That's going to look different in this season because we can't physically show up in someone's life the way that we would like to. But there are a ton of ways that we can show up for people in this season, and we can be practical for them in this season. So find those avenues. For those young adults of you who are living at home, who've had to move back with your parents, even, for example, like, I challenge you, ask your mom what she needs help with this week.
So good.
Because like you may be like drove because you're home and like you're back under your parents' roof, for example. But I promise you that, like, if you go to your mom or your dad, and you just say like, hey, like, I have tons of time, like, what's something you need help with around the house? They easily can have a project for you if that's like a part of spring cleaning, or maybe the old fence needs to be painted, and it's a way for you to help and to give back to others, even if it's the people who you're isolating yourself with.
Absolutely.
But to know that you're able to provide that for someone else is going to help you and how you feel and what your mood is. So help others, give back. That's cool. You're gonna have to get creative. It's gonna look different. But it's possible, right? The opportunity is there. Number 9, this one is to reach out for help if you feel like you need it. Do not face this season alone, because that is detrimental to where you are, where you're going, how you're feeling. It is okay to not be okay. So if you need help, reach out for that. Find the safety network, find the person, find the people who you can ask for that help from, and don't social distance yourself and also emotionally isolate yourself at the same time. Because that's 2 very different things. You can find the emotional and mental support that you need while physically not having to be around anybody. So please, if that is a space that you are in, find that help, seek that support. And I can't emphasize it enough. It's so important.
Good.
So important. And this is number 10. The last one is take it one day at a time. Take it one day at a time. Think about and focus on what you are able to conquer, what you are able to do, what you are able to implement in today. Today is all we get, people. So we have today to work with, we have today to conquer, we have today to overcome, and that's what we need to focus on. When we start thinking long-term about this, that can be very overwhelming. That can cause for a lot of anxiety. It's a totally unknown world right now that we're all living in. Probably the best thing that we can all do for ourselves is to just take it as today is. And that's it. Take today, get through today. Tomorrow's not here yet, so we don't need to worry about it. You know, Jesus even told us that, right? Just take it today. That's it. Because today can feel like something we can accomplish. Today is something that we feel like we can control and we can predict. And it comes back, you know, to that previous conversation. But when we start, you know, thinking really long-term and down the road, not only do we have no idea like where we're all going to be in this chaos, but that's stuff that we can't predict anyway in any season of life at any time. And oftentimes a lot of our anxieties come from that space of unknown and feeling like we can't control what's about to happen and we can't control what's about to come. So just focus on today with your routine and your shower and your social connection through screens, like your exercise, you're helping others, like just do today. That's all that's required of any of us is to get through today.
Amazing.
Those are so good, Erica.
So practical.
I'm so happy that this is going to be on Facebook Live for not just our church to hear, but I think there's so many people need to hear those.
Absolutely.
That's excellent.
So those are the 10. You know, take those 10 and do what you can, right? The 1 or the 2, or maybe it's like a slow thing where you implement all of them over time, potentially, right? So you do what you can to help where you are right now. That's my encouragement.
That's great. So if there's a student who finds himself in a really low moment, where things feel really dark, like we try to put resources out there that MUN advertises, like the mental health hotline that's open 24/7. There's a student support office at MUN, and then even us, like if people want to reach out to us or our lead team, is there anything else besides some of those 3 things that people can lean into if they're having just like a really low moment?
Yeah, of course. The number 1 support network that I always encourage people to reach out to is your community. Before you go outside of that parameter, like if you find yourself needing professional or clinical attention, go to your community first.
Yeah.
So the people who are in your life that you are safe with, that you can be vulnerable with, go to them first, because you need to have a support network. And those are the people who are in it for the long haul. Like they're the ones that have been like, hey, I am in your life and I am here. So I'm going to, like, they're in it for the long haul. So my first encouragement to you is to find them, reach out to them, seek support with them, be honest about how you're feeling with the people who are in your community. And that's your first step. Beyond that, that's when we then would encourage you to start looking for some professional and clinical support. A part of your internal community can be your local pastor, right? So like the people who are in your life in that capacity, who's your pastor? Maybe you have a mentor in your life. Maybe you're someone who's had like coaching before. Like those would be the people within that same community. When you look at finding some professional clinical support in this kind of season, again, the resources, Steve, that you already talked about are fantastic. Our government is currently like really amping that stuff up. So if you just even go to our government website, I think it's, I got it wrote down here somewhere. Anyway, it's like health.gov.nl.ca. You go to the mental health and addictions resource there. They have the different crisis lines written down. They have different opportunities for people to find professional counseling, and this is all free resources, which for a young adult who just lost your job potentially, that's important, right? You got you're going to be able to find some free resources right now, because you're like I run a private practice, but like I don't necessarily want to look at a young adult and be like, oh, like, go find someone private who then you're going to have to pay an hourly fee for, where right now our government is doing like a really great job with providing the free resources for people. They have the help, they have the lines you can call, they have the list of counselors that are available and the different resources that they have, all under that mental health and addictions link. You can find all of that information through them.
Awesome.
If you are in a space where, finding someone who is in a private practice and you're able to do that, by all means, like find the connection and the support that you need and you're comfortable with. Not everyone is comfortable going to just like a government funded public resource, right? Like, so you got to be able to be sensitive to what you need. If you need something that's more intimate, or something that's, someone can be a little bit more on call, say, for what you're experiencing, then maybe a private sector is somewhere that you need to go, where you could have a weekly or, a bi-weekly appointment. And that's okay if that's something you're able to do. But I would 100% encourage people to check out the government resources right now, because they're available and they're free, and it's something that they have just put like a ton of resources into, because we're in the middle of COVID-19. So our government is even aware of the fact that, hey, like people are going to struggle mentally right now, and that's okay. So let's amp up the support that we have for them during this time. So they've done a great job for that.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
That's excellent. I didn't know about that resource actually.
Neither did I.
Oh no, yeah, it's fantastic. They've been like,
great.
Like I know they've been talking about it on their daily reports that they do, that they tell people, call the crisis line and stuff like that. But if you actually go to the website, there's like a whole list of different supports that are available right now, and they have links to them. So
it's fantastic.
It's a great resource. Yeah.
Awesome.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Erica. This was, I know for me personally, this was great. But this is going to be so good for our church as well in this time. So thank you for taking the time to do this.
Oh, of course. And I'll even just, give it out to your Mosaic family. Like, I have a lot of connections with a lot of, the young adults that are a part of your guys' church, that like personally, if someone needs to reach out to me, like I said, I'm home self-distancing with 4 small kids, but like, I would love to be an open ear to someone who, might need some of that right now, because we're all in this together. So
absolutely. And we're better together.
We are. You're totally right.
Yeah. That's awesome. Thank you so much. You are super mom and super woman.
Like I've been told, but there's lots of days that I'm not sure.
Well, take it from us. You are.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I love young adults. Like I love you guys. I love being connected to this world. So yeah, thanks so much for allowing me to just kind of spiel some of the stuff that I'm passionate about to the people that you guys are connected to.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
No, we think you're the best, man.
Yeah.
And you and Cody, we're praying for you guys.
Thank
And
you.
for all your kids.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Absolutely. Thanks, Erica, so much.
You are welcome.
I want to thank Erica for joining us in our live stream this evening. There's so much great content in that, and I hope that you took the time to write some notes out, especially those 10 practical steps on how we can stay healthy during this time. But I think for me personally, the most almost relieving thing that she said was simply that it's okay. It's okay in this time to have moments where we feel anxious or depressive emotions, or times where we're sad or upset about this whole situation, because we're all in this together. So it's okay. But we want you to know that you're not going through this alone. Us as a church and as a family, we want to be there for you. And so I want to reiterate the ways that you can connect with us through our Gmail account, mosaiccampuschurch@gmail.com. Message us privately on Facebook, or myself, Rebecca, the lead team. We're all here for you, to pray for you, and to have a chat if you need to in the moments that are some of the darkest ones and the most celebratory ones. So we want you to know that we're here for you through this time. And so please feel free to reach out. I want to thank you for joining us. I want to remind you of our Netflix watch party this coming Wednesday. Go sign up for that right now. You won't regret it. It'll be an awesome time together. And next Sunday, we're going to continue our series, What a Time to Be Alive, with an awesome talk. So make sure you carve out the time to be with us next Sunday. Thanks for joining us. We love you, Mosaic.